Okay.
Good evening. Calling this special meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission on subdivision regulations to order. It is Wednesday, September 8th, 2021. We are meeting via Zoom. Present are Commissioners Alvin Hill, John B. Lenke, and Joseph Perotti Brown. And we will begin with item 2, review and discussion of subdivision regulations. Madam Leader.
Okay, so this is where we left off, was dedication of open space. And I think we had started to scroll through here, but we were all starting to get a little daffy. So just go back and quickly see if there's anything here. Open space should be dedicated by any of the following methods listed in this section. And the town shall consider such dedication as satisfying the open space requirements. Okay. All right. So here's the methods. And I don't think we had much in the way of comments here, but since we were starting to get a little scattered at the end of that last one, let's just quickly go back through. Method of dedication. Permanent dedication of each such area of open space shall be accomplished by conveyance of a fee simple ownership to the town of Thompson. Creation of a conservation easement in favor of the town of Thompson. Creation of a conservation easement in favor of the town of Thompson, reserving specific agricultural rights as approved by the commission. Fee simple ownership to a tax exempt organization approved by the commission. Creation of a conservation easement in favor of a tax exempt organization. Conveyance of fee simple ownership to a Connecticut non-stock corporation of which all owners of land within the subdivision are members, along with a conservation easement in favor of the town over the entire open space area, or any other method which accomplishes permanent dedication in accordance with the requirements set forth in this section. I still think, even being slightly less daffy, that there wasn't really much there. I don't have any real comments from any of the prior folks who reviewed alongside. Did anybody else flag anything?
Can we just look at this G paragraph that we're at right now?
Would you be wanting to look at it because it essentially says any method?
Well, yes, one. Two, I think at the very least, the second sentence on is separate from the like this idea that the commission may require A, B, or C, A, B, C, or F, like, you know, at our own discretion, and may require D, E, or G with consent. I think that needs to be pulled out. And the rest, right? Like it doesn't logically follow to me. I think if we keep that in, we keep it in apart from G or H. I don't know if I'm being clear. I'm sorry.
No, you are. I mean, the first thing that occurred to me as I was reading it aloud is, you know, here's all these methods, but then any method.
Right.
Which is like, well, why are we describing all the other methods? Although that might not be a bad thing. It could be sort of along the lines of there may be novel means which arise. So right. I don't hate it, but it does seem kind of silly. Second sentence.
Right, yeah, like the second sentence on is sort of like governance of all the other ways we could do it.
Right.
So I feel like it's its own section, not maybe section, but paragraph or line or something. And then how does H fit into the rest of it?
Ownership and maintenance of the open space and or recreation area to be transferred to a sub. Yeah, I see what you're saying there too. Like this actually seems like How is this one titled? This is titled Method of Dedication. And then H is transfer of ownership, right? Ownership of maintenance of the open space and or recreation area to be transferred to an association of property owners.
So is it another method?
It's an incomplete thought, first of all. Yeah, I don't know if that's saying that ownership and maintenance of the open space and or recreation area shall be transferred, or in the instance where it is transferred to an association of property owners, then the following apply. And it seems to me it's more the latter.
Yeah, like, it seems to me like it's meant as another method of dedication.
Yeah. Santos is not going to make it, by the way. He had a building committee meeting.
Yeah, I just saw that.
Yeah.
Got a little distracted.
Let's see. Where owner? I still hate using this laptop. My fingers are too clumsy for the delicate little keys. This window too.
Kira,
Yeah.
in H, the document providing such transfer must, now shall. You never use the word must.
Right. Again, I hate this laptop thing. I can't seem. Oh, here we go. I can just hide you guys. There we go. Now I can see what I'm doing. Is to be transferred. Document providing such shall So I'm not sure that I actually that we answered the question that you posed, Joe, though, which is that still under this what did we say this was, method of dedication, or is this a new concept other than method of dedication? Like conditions of dedication? What is this?
Yeah, so it seems, like I said, it seems to me like a method. But it seems very similar, or like could at least be connected to F.
Yes, I think that you are right. Conveyance of fee simple ownership to a Connecticut non-stock corporation of which all owners of land within the subdivision are members. Ownership and maintenance of the open. Yeah, I kind of feel like H modifies F. I mean, repeats it in some ways in different language, but also modifies it because it's describing the conditions of transfer to this type through this particular method.
Right, and the issue with this H is the 10 requirements that are attached to it. Makes it very bulky. Which isn't to say that they're not maybe important. But structurally, this whole section throws me for a loop.
Yeah. Okay, I think that I will understand that note I just left to myself. Anybody's guess? Okay. Continuing. Establish a mandatory participation in association of property owners to maintain the land reservation for open space. Oh God, the language is just mind-boggling. Establish a mandatory participation in an association of property owners to maintain, oh, that's one of the conditions. All right, so
Yeah,
all right, so the document providing such transfer must establish. Okay. You're right. That is so clunky. So if I were to do it, well, it still ends up being clunky. I think that your instinct is right, Joe, that it is redundant to F. I'm not sure which of those would be the preferable language. And that those parenthetical A through J
mhm.
modify or reflect back on item F or H, whichever it is. Maybe it's just because of the formatting on the page and the fact that it's lowercase letters again, as opposed to.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly part of it for sure. I think. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, it's not great either way. But I think it's at least a little clearer if the level of numbering is more distinct. See if I can get my Roman numerals right. Oh, look at that, through 10, so they were easy. Okay, well, let's look at this item then. The document providing such transfer must establish a mandatory participation in an association of property owners to maintain the land reservation. Land reserved.
Take out that word must, please.
Well, I have it in my
It's in the-
marginal, but I'll
it's
just
in
do
the
it here.
note, yeah.
Yeah, it's all right. I'll just do it here. Maintain the land reserve for open space, park, and or playground purposes with power to assess all members for all necessary costs, to assess fees to all members. Be binding on all future property owners. Okay. Be perpetual. Okay, although I'm not sure that phrasing is correct. Not be affected by any change in zoning or land use. Okay. Assure adequate maintenance. Now this is redundant, I think. Roman numeral 5 to Roman numeral 1. Assure adequate maintenance seems to me redundant to establish a mandatory participation to maintain the land. We need to say that again.
No,
I think not.
You could, I mean, you could combine it, right? So with power to assess fees to all members for,
For the purpose of maintenance,
yeah,
for the purpose of adequate maintenance.
yeah.
Collapse this into item 1. Okay. Provide for enforcement by the town by appropriate. Provide for enforcement by the town. By appropriate legal action. I guess it's all right. Provide that if maintenance or preservation of the dedication no longer comply with the provisions of the document, the town may take all necessary action to assure compliance and assess against the associations all costs incurred by the town for such purposes. Is that redundant to the prior item? Provide for enforcement by the town. Necessary action is enforcement, is it not?
Correct.
Same thing, collapse it together.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Comply with the Connecticut Common Interest Ownership Act and other relevant state laws and regulations. Okay, after approval by the town attorney and the commission, the commission. The document shall be filed by the subdivider with the town clerk. Okay. Reserved as an oh God, that is like the worst sentence fragment ever. Reserved as an agricultural easement for the exclusive use of crop production. What is the actual language?
Shoulder pain, hip pain, and leg pain. I couldn't do my own hair or
Reserved as an agricultural easement for the exclusive use of crop production. But that is a form of set aside, not a method of set aside. Am I wrong?
So we're not even in methods anymore, right? This would say that ownership document shall reserve this open space as an agricultural easement for the exclusive use of crop production.
So this should also be collapsed into item 1, because that's item 1 is establish a mandatory participation in an association of property owners to maintain the land reserved for open space, park, and or playground purposes. So it should also include an agricultural easement for the exclusive use of crop production. Then it makes sense, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me fix this note.
And then when you're ready, I'd like to go back to 9 for a second.
To 9, did you say?
Yeah,
Okay.
not for content, just for syntax.
Okay, yes, let's go back for syntax then.
So the document shall is already the main clause before
Document providing such transfer shall,
yeah,
be filed by the subdivider. So we're
with the town clerk after approval by the town attorney and the commission.
can only wonder what my cats are doing. Switch the order of these phrases. Okay. Oh, that only took us 10 minutes. Anything else in this messy little list?
Thank you so much. So as the mother of the
There's one little thing that always gets me, when we reference section 8-25, it should be chapter 126, section 8-25, especially in a heading.
Where are we seeing that? Where are you here? I don't even,
In the very, very beginning.
okay, so let's go back.
Yep.
Okay,
Dedication of open space.
Yeah, it's a good catch.
And chapter 126, comma, section -825 of the Connecticut General Statutes.
I think a lot of them feel defenseless, they feel helpless even in wondering.
chapter 126, section 8-25. Okay. And I have the comment too. Okay, got it. Got it. Come on. All right, anything else in this section on method of dedication? All right, item 2, which is still under method, I think. No, item 2 is a new heading. General, when any dedication of open space is made as per section ELF, which is actually E1F, convey once to a Connecticut non-stock corporation, the deed, declaration, or other instrument transferring interest in the property shall be in the form acceptable to the town and shall provide it a minimum.
Okay, so this section is doing what H was just
Did.
doing.
Yes, but with
for-
different language. So which is correct?
Well, it's arguably talking about different things.
Beliefs in how important it is to protect the innocent, to protect.
Right, except we just said that we thought H was redundant to
Right,
F.
right.
So is it actually redundant to F? Do those two things, that the easy thing to do here is to put a note. How is this different?
We can equate
And if they are different,
that accepted
then I think
about the life of an innocent child in the womb.
everything from the document providing such transfer shall
To
should also come down in a parallel construction to what's happening in section 2 general.
Right. How do I want to phrase that here, though? How is F different from H? And if they are different, then these items should follow F in construction to H, right? Okay, yes, exactly what you said. Sometimes this stuff crosses my eyes when I look at it. All right, be binding. I mean, what is clear is that the construction of the language between this non-stock corporation and the Association of Property Owners is very different. All of a sudden, we're into covenants and restricts.
Right.
Or restrictions, restrict covenants and restrictions. Hello, Mary Eames.
Hello.
Did you join us to go over the subdivision regulations this evening? Your name's not familiar, or is sort of familiar to me, but I just wanted to be sure you you knew you were in the right meeting. We don't get a lot of guests in here.
Well, your agenda it didn't make sense to me. I wanted to see what the meeting was about.
Oh, okay. Well, welcome. So this is a subcommittee of the Planning and Zoning Commission to review, essentially pull apart and go over the existing subdivision regulations so that we can revise them to be consistent with our overhauled zoning regulations. So you're, by all means, you're certainly welcome to stay, but that is what we're doing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, let's look. Oh, God. Let me see if I can delete some space here to bring this closer up while we look at it. This is what I get for converting a PDF to a Word doc. Doesn't always work. All right, we're gonna have to look at it in little chunks. Pain in the neck. All right, when any dedication of open space is made as per section E1F, not ELF, convey once to a Connecticut non-stock corporation, the deed, declaration, or other instrument transferring interest in the property shall be in a form acceptable to the town and shall provide at a minimum that all covenants or restrictions shall be binding upon and inure to the benefit of all present and future owners of the land within the subdivision. That such covenants and restrictions may be enforced by each present and future owner of land within the subdivision and also by the town by appropriate action in court for damages or for affirmative or negative equitable relief. That the rights and duties created by such covenants or restrictions shall not in any way be modified or amended without the prior written approval of the commission. And now we can scroll all the way down here. That if at any time maintenance, preservation, or use of such open space area shall not comply with or fulfill the provisions of such covenants or restrictions, the town may, at its election, yeah, that should be at its discretion. I'm just going to make that change. Take any and all such action as may be necessary or appropriate to assure or enforce compliance and to assess against the owners of land within the subdivision, either jointly or severally, all costs incurred by the town for such purposes. I don't know about you guys, but I still think that we are talking about different construction of language describing the same thing. F and H under the methods of dedication, and then these little sub lists seem like different ways of saying the same thing. I'm still not taking anything else away from that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I wonder if Attorney Roberts would.
Yeah, that's sort of in the back of my mind before I make any permanent changes here, but I mean, hopefully it's a simple question with a simple answer.
Right.
You know, it's so hard to tell, again, because we have no insight into the intent of the people who wrote it the first time.
Mhm.
All right. So we have the two lists, and I'll just ask Roberts if there is any reason why both of those sets of provisions need to be included in their entirety, or if they can be mashed together. And which is better? I mean, one may be better than the other.
Right.
Evidence of acceptance. If open space is to be dedicated to an entity other than the town, the applicant shall provide written evidence satisfactory to the commission from the entity proposed to own the open space, stating that it is willing to accept ownership of and responsibility for the preservation and maintenance of the open space in perpetuity. Okay, that's fairly straightforward, I think.
Mhm.
Transfer of interest, the commission shall approve any transfer of title of interest to any successor entity. Okay, I think that's also inoffensive. Delineation, marking of open space. All corners of the open space or conservation easement shall be permanently marked by, oops, Iron pins or monuments as required for all other parcels as noted in citation's almost certainly wrong. Check citation. These regulations, the commission may require the applicant to post identification plaques each 50 feet along the edge of the open space as visual identification of these areas to future residents. Okay, I don't think there's any problem there. Anybody feel free to stop me at any time. Legal transfer, properly executed legal documents, including warranty deeds for any title transfers, shall be prepared in accordance with the provisions of this section, shall be submitted with the final subdivision map to be endorsed and filed. All warranty deeds shall be accompanied by a certificate of title prepared by an attorney admitted to the bar of the state of Connecticut, certifying that such conveyance passes good title to the described property or property interest, and that it is free and clear of any defect or encumbrances, or that any such encumbrance has been subordinated to the conveyance. All documents must be acceptable to the commission and its attorney and shall refer to the subdivision maps by title. All warranty deeds for dedication of land to the town shall be held in escrow by the commission to be recorded on the town land records upon acceptance by the Board of Selectmen. In the
Sorry,
event,
sorry,
go ahead.
Tara.
ahead.
I was trying to check something out. Going back to that citation, and this is gonna be like just a real quick to
Where?
add to your note.
Oh, to my
Article
note.
4, your Article 4, Section 2P of these regulations.
Yeah.
I'm unclear because I just looked at Article 4, Section 2P of the subdivision regulations as written,
Yeah.
and that has nothing to do with monuments or pins. So I'm worried that that may have been a reference to the zoning regulations, perhaps.
Do we have anything about monumenting in the zoning regulations, though? I feel like we don't.
I, with 100% certainty, can't say.
Well, I
one
think
way
if you're referencing an A2, which we do in zoning, that in itself requires pins and monuments, any A2 requirement.
Okay, well, let's, and that would be the old zoning regulations anyway,
Right,
so.
exactly, yeah, which is what makes it a little more challenging. Just something to be mindful of as we are checking that out.
Oh, good catch, Joe. Cross-check with new regs. Okay. All right. What I did think to myself as I was reading these things is that this paragraph should be broken out into items, distinct thoughts for clarity. Rig.
This is outrageous because this is how Black conservatives are treated when they speak out in a platform.
I mean, maybe not every sentence, but if the convention of the document is that we're listing out, you need A, B, C, and D on your document, then it should always be A, B, C, and D, or, you know, whether it's letters or numbers or whatever.
Yeah.
That's a style note. Banking open space. Okay, and we have a marginal note here from Dave Held. At the commission's discretion, excess open space land within a subdivision under consideration, which is deemed suitable for open space purposes, may be banked to satisfy all or part of the open space consideration in any other subdivision. The land can only be used as open space or to supplement open space for another subdivision if, in the commission's opinion, there is not sufficient suitable land within the proposed subdivision for that purpose. The commission may elect to receive a fee in lieu of open space land within the proposed subdivision, banked open space from another subdivision, or any combination thereof to satisfy the open space obligation for that subdivision. All right, let's see what Dave's note is. This is unworkable. If you bank open space in a subdivision today, you should be able to use it for a subdivision in the future. It's not fair to be told in the future that we want open space in the future subdivision and you can't use your banked open space from the previous project. That's all very convolute. Let's read this sentence again. The land can only be used as open space or to supplement open space for another subdivision if, in the commission's opinion, there is not sufficient suitable land within the proposed subdivision for that purpose. Honestly. Now, Joe, I don't know if this is reminding you of the same thing as but weren't we just talking about something very similar to this with the affordable housing plan?
Yeah,
Like it's transfer of rights, essentially.
yeah.
So and maybe I'm wrong, but it seems to me that it's suggesting that the subdivider can say, if they have 25% as opposed to 20%,
Mhm.
that they can count that extra 5% towards a future subdivision and maybe only give 15 in that
Right.
future subdivision, right? So that seems fairly straightforward. I'm not sure that I agree, and maybe I'm just missing the content, that the sentence that Dave flagged here contradicts that. The land can only be used as open space or to supplement open space for another subdivision if, in the commission's opinion, there is not sufficient, I guess.
Yeah. So his
Yeah.
concern is a developer does project A, does extra open space, planning to use it for project B. We come back and say, no, you can't use it for project B.
Right.
He's-
And the reason that we would say you can't use it for project B is because project B has enough,
plenty of.
has plenty of
Room.
land for you to do
Yeah.
it.
I would love to see. I'm not necessarily. I'm not sure about this banking section. Like,
I will say that I do think it's more theoretical than actual.
yeah. Right. So on one hand, it does seem to incentivize using more, taking more open space than required in a certain subdivision. But then on the other hand, taking away from another subdivision, like my instinct is, well, if you don't have enough room for open space, then you don't get to make a subdivision. So I'd love to see, I don't know, Tira, if there's research or reasoning behind why communities do this and who and what it benefits.
I mean, it's similar to carbon cap and trades, right? But
Yeah.
So the question is the same in both instances. Is it an effective tool? What do you lose by allowing it and what do you gain by allowing it? If we have conservation subdivisions, which are a method by which we can encourage a larger set aside, which is not a trade-off for another subdivision, the trade-off is that you get to have more compact development to create more lots and monetize more. What is the value of the cap and trade unless it is between districts? I can kind of see the value, and this is similar, and maybe I see it this way because we just had this conversation for the affordable housing plan. I can kind of see the value if if you are a subdivider proposing a subdivision in, and let's just use, 10 units in both instances. 10 units in a subdivision in the RRAD. In which case, 20% of that space is set aside for open space. So let's say that you want to, that same developer also has, or not units, 10 acres, also has 10 acres in the DMRD and would rather not have the open space requirement there because of the density of the development, then you can trade, theoretically, your open space credits from the densely developed area to the non-densely developed area.
Yeah.
But I reiterate my point. I think it's more theoretical than actual.
Right.
I mean, and maybe it's valuable enough in its theoretical construction, to offer it as an option. I have a hard time visualizing that actually being the case.
Yeah.
And if I look at the list, like half of America then is a white supremacist.
Is it possible to articulate the banking?
Mr. Chair,
Mr.
John.
Lankey.
what you're discussing, and I'm just going through my mind, and what Tara's just saying has got me. Is there a possible way to see if any of this was possible or has been done in any surrounding town?
Yeah, that was sort of like the next part of my question as well, John. Yeah.
Because we can dance with this all night if you want, but it's still, to me, it's still a little bit confusing taking something from one subdivision and giving that person or that to another subdivision. Like I said, but it's creating a can of worms, in my opinion. But then it doesn't matter really. But if say like Woodstock or Pomfret or even Putnam or Killingle or something, did they ever had to use this, or some contractor or developer, more of a developer?
Yeah, it's a
Was
really
there-
good question, John. And obviously nobody at this moment has the answers, but I've got the note of
Well,
myself to see if we can find an example.
Well, right, because I'm not, my experience working on subdivisions, for a developer and stuff. Be honest with you, I never heard of this, but if you're gonna let one do it, then how do we say to another person, another developer, well, no, you really can't do it because you do not have, say, the open space criteria, if you want, if so to speak. Maybe I'm going off the wrong path here, but I would try to see if any other towns, you could Ashford all out that way, because they still got a lot of good land where you could have some subdivisions or whatever. Or they have anything.
Yeah, Ashford actually is a town that I happen to know does have a lot of land that is
Yes.
theoretically eligible for subdivision, more than most. But I
Well,
think it's either Ashford or Eastford that doesn't have any zoning. So that's almost a straight.
Well, yeah, because those two towns come under the under NECOG.
Yeah.
Because whatever goes on down, because I I know some people that live down there, and they have asked me questions about this or that. And I says, what? Don't you have your own, like your own zoning regs or anything? And they said, no, everything we have to do is we do it through NECOG. I said, oh, okay, that put the brakes on right there, but it's something I think we really need to look at.
Yeah, no, it is a good question, and I will do what I can to find out. I mean, my other impression about this, aside from the fact that it seems theoretical rather than actual, is that it does sort of make the presumption that the municipality in question is still a blank slate,
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
right? Something, I mean, Ashford isn't a total blank slate. People do live there, but yeah, they happen to have a number of huge parcels. I see your puppy, Joe Perotti. What is her name?
Shelley.
Hi, Shelley. Good dog.
I mean,
Um,
you could spread, you could go, you could reach out to like Mansfield and all that area too, I mean,
yeah, I'll see what I can find out.
those-
I too am curious.
It's worth noting as well, right, that it is a may construction.
what was that again, Joseph?
It's worth noting that it's may language as opposed to shall, shall allow.
Yes, correct. But
It is very, very much up to the commission's discretion.
Yeah,
But
and I
what-
think the convention in Thompson, at least, where developers have been trying to skirt open space requirements, whether those reasons are legitimate or not, has been the fee in lieu,
Mhm.
which gets
Right.
into the
Right.
next section. And it may just be because it's easier to understand.
Right.
Um, So possibly if we make this stuff easier to understand, the options will seem more attractive as well. And that is a part of why we do this, right? Is to make it clearer and, actually lay the options out. But yeah, I've got a note to myself there, John, that'll be one of the things I look into.
I know you got enough on your table and everything, but I'll try to reach out to some people I know out that way too and see what kind of response I get, but to me, it's not really, say, opening a can of worms, but it just doesn't sit right, in my mind. I don't know why, but like Joe said, it's a may instead of a shall.
Right.
And that's, then how do we do the verbiage for it to make it a shall or
Well,
or
it would
keep
never
it-
be it would never be
no,
a
no, I'm
shall
just, no, I'm
because of the
just,
nature of what's being proposed. It's an option
understand
in
that.
case one parcel is suitable and one is not.
right. But you could be passing that card around, they could be passing that card around all the time.
Yeah, I mean, for whatever it's worth, and you guys are not part of the Affordable Housing Plan group, but something very similar to this, as Joe and I were mentioning earlier, has come up a couple of times in that discussion. And it is more along the lines of what I was just talking about. And I have to say, I too do not understand it perfectly, but the idea was if you have a developer who wants to put, single family homes on lots in the RRAD, maybe he agrees to put more open space aside there so he can build a denser development in the DMRD. When you think of it that way, it makes a little more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm skeptical of whether the same type of developer looks at both kinds of projects, but maybe they do. We just haven't happened to have seen them, perhaps. But I'll find out what I can about those things. All right. So if the subdivision site does not provide desirable open space opportunities as determined by the Conservation Commission and Planning and Zoning Commission. Okay, and Dave Held's note there is that Conservation Commission does not have regulatory authority. So that would just be an amendment, I think. As determined by the Planning and Zoning Commission, as advised or with advice from the Conservation Commission. I think that's their advisory.
Yeah.
With advice from the The applicant may offer alternate open space on it. It seems like that's saying exactly the same thing, though. The applicant may offer alternate open space on other land under his/her ownership in the town. The commission will determine the terms and conditions of such an arrangement and all appropriate land. Are those saying different things? Slightly different things?
Not really. I could be wrong, but sounds the same to me.
Is there a subtlety there that I'm missing? Oh, it's an incomplete sentence. Hold on. Scroll down. Oh, what a nuisance. Such a nuisance.
It seems, Tira, to me that it's sort of like the two different, like the two opposite directions of thinking about the same thing, right? In one case, it's I'm banking this to use later. In the other, it's I'm taking from what I already own.
So it's utilizing the banked space?
To some extent, yeah. Oh, my computer is flashing on and off because it's unhappy about its power source right now.
Oh, I thought maybe you were growling at the dog.
Well, indirectly. So yeah, so either utilizing the banked space or, the way this is written, it doesn't sound like it has to be from a subdivision.
Yeah, let's see. If the subdivision site does not provide desirable open space opportunities as determined by the alternate open space. So you're suggesting, if I follow you, that this is giving the subdivider an option when proposing a new subdivision of going back to a property that may already have an excess of open space, whether or not it had been specifically banked, and pulling from that.
Right. Or like, yeah, I'm gonna do the subdivision. I own 25 acres over here that's not been subdivided, that's not been designated as banked, but it's my land. I'm gonna demarc 15 of those acres as open space for this subdivision.
Yeah, but that is as clear as mud. I mean, we can make each other understand it with
Right.
15 minutes of discussion. Let's see, item 2 implies land that is already owned, but not designated. I think you are probably right. Sometimes I look at this stuff and the alternate language just flows, and sometimes I look at it and it is just word soup. And we are in word soup land tonight. All right, but I will go back to that. I always prevail in the end. 3, banked open space will be indicated on the original subdivision plan as to its area and dimensions and will be labeled as such. The amount of banked open space shall be included in the approval motion, shall be included in the minutes, and shall be noted in the final Mylars. So interesting to the point we just made, this is saying that your banked open space has to be designated as banked. Right? So it almost seems like it contradicts what we were just saying about 2. Like if you didn't already say that it was banked, can you trade against it?
Yeah, which is why I think 2 doesn't necessarily speak to banked open space in a subdivision. is like, hey, I've got this land. I am now calling it open space for,
So maybe part of the issue is flipping those two pieces. Right, the one so that one talks
Yeah.
about the conditions under which open space may be banked for future use in a subdivision plan. Item 2, which is now 3, is that banked open space shall be indicated. Shall be indicated on the original subdivision plan. Okay, so that's when you're starting with those blank slates. And then the new item 3 is, should clarify that in the event when a property owner has existing property which exceeds any open space requirements, they can trade, right? So it's that
Yeah.
cap and trade idea again. I think I can probably figure that out. I might even be able to figure it out sober. We'll find out. Okay, I think I'm a little happier with that now after that back and forth. Anybody else have anything there? Including, John, the request to check and see if anybody actually does this.
Well, it wouldn't hurt. So this way we at least have something to have in our pocket or something down the road.
Yeah.
And say, yes, this has been done, you know, in Pomfret or Eastford or wherever. So at least we can say that we did some homework or some homework and research was done. So we're not shooting from the hip on this.
Right. I mean, I think that the purpose of all 3 of these subsections, which is to say open space requirements, now these banked space options, and then conservation subdivision options, are intended to increase the amount of overall open space within the community. So the question, if anybody is doing it and using it, is, does it serve that purpose? In the caps and trades, do you actually get more open space or do you get less? Because if the answer is that you get less, then we would not want to pursue that. If the answer is yes, we can demonstrate that you get more total preserved space, then I would say that's a worthy set of options to include.
Correct.
Yeah.
I that's a real good explanation, Tara. But it just, like I said, I don't know how I could wrap my head around that one. I mean, if it's like anything else, if you don't know until you start asking questions. I mean, we don't know. Some town out in the Litchfield County probably has done it. We don't know. I mean, how did they handle it, or how did they? What did they do to make the situation much easier?
Right.
The state of Connecticut planning and zoning people, forget it. You know what I mean?
We are state of Connecticut planning and zoning people, John.
No. I mean the people in Hartford. I'm talking Hartford.
I know what you meant. Okay, so this section I think is probably a little more straightforward because I believe it's been used, right? Fee in lieu of open space. So, and I don't see any notes from Dave Held, which is encouraging. Fee in lieu of open space is set forth in section 8-25 of the Connecticut
of
General
what? Of what, asks Alvin. Section 25 of what?
Killing me. You're killing me. What is it, chapter 126, Alvin?
Yes, 126.
Thank you.
I couldn't let Alvin have all the fun.
As set forth in chapter 126, section 8-25 of the Connecticut General Statutes, the commission may authorize the applicant to pay a fee to the town or pay a fee to the town and transfer land to the town in lieu of the full requirement to provide open space as set forth above. Okay, that is a relatively clear statement. Such authorization may be granted by the commission if and when it determines at its sole discretion. At its sole discretion that conditions such as subdivision size, population densities, existing open space in the neighborhood topography, soils, or other characteristics are such that on-site open space is not as desirable as a fee in lieu of open space. Fees submitted under this section shall be deposited by the town in a fund, which shall be used for the purpose of preserving open space or acquiring additional land for open space or for recreational or agricultural purposes. Sidebar note here, Carolyn very much thought that this was a good program. So her endorsement is meaningful to me here. She says it's been very helpful in actually building that open space fund. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Amount, such fee or combination of fee.
Can we name that under for Carol?
I don't know if the regulations work that way. Maybe. We could name the whole section on conservation, subdivisions, and open space after. I'd be perfectly happy with that. Such fee or
would agree with
combination of
that.
fee and land transferred shall be 10% of the fair market value of the land to be subdivided prior to the approval of the subdivision. The fair market value shall be determined by an appraiser jointly selected by the commission and the applicant, with the cost of all appraisal fees and expenses borne by the applicant. Okay, also fairly straightforward. Procedure to employ the fee in lieu of open space option. The following procedure shall be used. A, the applicant shall submit a narrative to the commission setting forth his desire to utilize the provisions of section H. Section H, section I, first of all, and it's going to be a different citation anyway.
Just say of this section.
Yes, I believe it is this section, which is I, not H. It's right there.
If you just say this section.
Oh, I see. I see what. Yes, I see what you're saying. I'm
From
sorry.
future mistakes.
Of this section. Right, right. The commission shall determine whether to accept the applicant's proposal or to accept a different combination of land transfer and fee, or to require an open space dedication only. The commission and applicant shall jointly select an appraiser to submit a report. Steps A through C may be accomplished at the application acceptance portion of the process. Okay. The applicant shall submit the appraisal during the formal application review process. The commission, as part of the action of the applicant, it's weird. The commission, as part of the action of the applicant, shall either accept the fee in lieu proposal, a combination of fee and land transfer proposal, or require an open space dedication. Is that not exactly the same as B rather?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, that's
Much,
exactly.
yeah.
What was that, Alvin?
No, exactly. It's repeating itself.
Yeah, yeah. There's no new information there.
So you could take and kind
Yeah,
of put D
We'll
together
strike that.
or strike it? Yeah.
Yeah,
I was
we'll just
gonna-
strike it. It's entirely redundant. It doesn't say anything new.
Okay, well,
Yeah. Okay.
you're good with the combination words of making things out, but then we don't need D. You're right. Then we don't need D if we got B. The B's pretty good.
Yeah. Right. The commission may deem a transfer of land to a land trust or other similar nonprofit entity organized to reserve land in its natural state at a satisfaction of the applicant's obligation to transfer land to the municipality. Question: what does that have to do with fee in lieu?
Right.
That is a form of dedication of open space.
Right.
Every time we read these things, I wonder how anybody ever built anything in the town of Thompson for the last 20 years.
Go back farther than that.
Yeah, no kidding. Move this.
So do we really need E in there, or should the verbiage?
No, but it's got to be moved to a different section. assuming that it's not redundant to something else in the open space section. But yeah, it has nothing to do with fee and lieu. Payment. The method of payment of any fees under this section shall be one of the following two options. A, the applicant at his option may submit the entire fee in one lump sum prior to the filing of subdivision mylars with the town clerk. Or B, the applicant may elect to submit a fraction of such payment, the numerator of which, what? The numerator of which is 1 and the denominator of which is the number of approved building lots in the subdivision, no later than the time of the sale of each approved building lot. And a notation describing this requirement shall be placed on the final subdivision map filed in the town clerk's office. So he's saying, so this is saying that they're submitting the fees as a portion of the sale of each lot, yes? Is that what that is meant to communicate?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, let's try it again. The applicant may elect to submit a fraction of such payment, the numerator of which is 1 and the denominator of which is the number of approved building lots in the subdivision. That is the stupidest construction I have ever heard.
Yeah, so if it's a 42 lot subdivision, they can pay 1/42 every time that is a lot is sold until they get to the full.
So let's see, a fraction of such payment,
That's not
It
real.
may be,
the fractional value of which is equivalent to the number of lots in the subdivision. Why is that so hard?
I mean, why even have this section? Good grief.
Alvin's got a good point there.
Well, I mean, I guess the assumption is that that a developer is making his money back on the subdivision as he sells the lots, and we've certainly run into that. So each portion of the sale, each sale of a new lot, a portion of that sale is set aside is the fee in lieu. That's all that's saying. But the way it was phrased was,
So you stretch it out 10 years? Come on.
well, I don't disagree that it's not the ideal option. But I understand the purpose. Now, you guys may discuss whether this is something that is worth preserving in this form.
No.
well, so I mean, even with Alvin, even though even though they have to submit a bond equal to the full amount of the fee.
That's right. We didn't get all the way through the items. So let's start again. Let's just, and we'll read it with the clearer language. The applicant may elect to submit a fraction of such payment, the fractional value of which is equivalent to the number of lots in the subdivision. No later than the time, so to be remitted to the town no later than the time of sale of each approved building lot. And a notation describing this requirement shall be placed on the final subdivision map filed in the town clerk's office. If this option is chosen, the applicant shall submit a bond or other security acceptable to the town equal to the full amount of fee required prior to the filing of the subdivision maps in the town clerk's office. Any required fees shall be paid to the town prior to the release of this bond. The commission may also choose other acceptable securities such as a mortgage or lien on the land to be subdivided. This mortgage or lien shall secure the amount of the fee until paid. No building permits shall be issued until such fractional part is paid as to any lot in the subdivision. So the bond requires the developer, the subdivider, to have the full amount of the fee in lieu held aside, but it would only be permanently transferred to the town fractionally upon the sale of each building lot. I mean, I would agree with Alvin that that seems hideously inefficient.
Yeah, who's going to keep track of it? Whew.
Well,
Say nothing of inflation and everything else.
Right. I guess the only thing that holds me back from saying, yeah, that's kind of dumb and inefficient, is that I am not familiar enough with the conventions of development from the perspective of the builder or the developer. Like, is that a common way that residential subdividers and developers handle their fees? Do they keep themselves cash lean so that they can go into the next project? That's the only reservation that I have, and I obviously don't have the answer to that.
Be interesting to see what the other towns are doing.
Yeah, this is another one
well,
maybe.
well, let's just look at what we had, what we're going through in this town, so to speak, is case in point, we kind of, we're in the middle, well, you can call it in the middle of it, how it's gone, and if you, no building permit shall be issued until such fractional payment is paid as to any lot in the subdivision. We, what's his name there, up there in, East Thompson, Monahan Drive, whatever it is, Monahan Drive,
Are you talking about Madison?
Madison. Case in point. Only 3 houses was supposed to, building permits, all that stuff was supposed to be issued. Next thing you know, he had 6 houses put up in no time. And Mike Krugel, kept saying, oh, how can he have 3 other houses? There you go, right there. No building permit shall be issued. There's your fractionals. We didn't, even though we had a good, we got a good bond, but the bond was just so he could they could get the loan to build the first 3 houses. Case, I'm just using that as a case in point. I'm not.
No. It's a fair point, John. And again, what I don't know, the piece that I don't have, is what is the common practice of residential, well, it doesn't just even have to be residential, I suppose. What is the common practice of developers of subdivisions in terms of, how cash lean do they hold themselves? Although, even if they're cash lean, if they still have to front a bond in the full amount,
Correct.
then what's the point?
No, we're not the bankers.
That's why we discussed, when we were discussing the bond issue and everything, we raised the bond was to try to cover. The bond to me would be more than sufficient if you got to say a 10 lot subdivision going in, whatever. I don't know how. It's still, again, it's mind boggling to me, but if you're going to put a bond on something, you always want to put a decent bond so that at least there's a chance to recover. He's going to get it back in the end, but how do we say we're going to do a fractional? And then no building permit shall be issued until such fractional part is paid. Okay, then what do we constitute a fractional pay? Like Joe just said, he's got 1/42 of a payment. Well, what's that amount be?
It does seem to be a strange way to use a bond.
Correct.
Yeah, and we're the loser.
Mr.
I don't necessarily know that we're the loser. I just think it's super inefficient for both parties. But it is certainly possible that there is something in the logic that is not making itself plain to me.
Well, you've been saying it right along. If we're gonna, a developer's gonna put in houses and everything, and you got a cul-de-sac, right? Does the town benefit from that? and you know, and your thoughts and your feelings on that are, you know, I mean, it makes you think, okay, what is the bet? Okay, so those people are gonna have to create their own association or something to clean the road, you know, to have it plowed or whatever the case may be. Like down in Killingley, I can tell you down up a Maple Drive and Maple Drive, there's at least maybe six no outlets or whatever you want to call it, and they're considered a town, you know, a
Right.
town. So, you know, you got a good case in point. But, all right, then, but how does it benefit the whole town?
Right. Right. And
So-
that's the piece I'm missing. Joe, what are your wheels turning on this over there?
Right, so I'm going back to, okay, so I've got my 30 lot house or 30 lot subdivision, sorry. And, you know, just to do math, you know, the fee is $30,000, right? So I get a surety bond with the town for $30,000. I pay $1,000 each time I sell a lot
To the town,
to the town,
to the open space fund.
right? And then once I've paid all 30,000, the surety bond is released, right?
Right. So you've paid 30,000, but you get 30,000 back.
Right.
As opposed to paying the 30,000 up front. I mean, those are the two options that are being presented. But you still, in both of those scenarios, the developer is fronting $30,000. It's just that in one scenario, he fronts it and never gets it back. In the second scenario, he fronts it and gets it back, but he's paid the equivalent of $30,000 over the time it takes him to sell the 30 lots.
Okay.
That's the piece that seems so stupidly
Talk
inefficient to me.
Talk to me like I'm stupid about bonds. A surety bond,
Well, I am stupid about bonds, so I'm not going to be much help.
a surety bond is a third party bond, right?
Correct.
So I'm not necessarily putting out the $30,000 from the beginning. I've got someone, an institution saying that I'm good for the 30,000, right?
That would be correct, Ms. Joseph.
So there's the difference, right? I might not be able to put out $30,000 right away, but I get the institution to say I'm good for it. I pay it $1,000 at a time as I sell. Then the surety bond is released to the third party.
Or whoever, yeah. Whoever
Right, that's how it works.
And the town is protected because the surety bond is the surety bond. If the developer bellies up
Then
and
that
only a portion of the bond of the houses have been sold or whatever,
right.
the town still reaps the benefit. So there is the logic.
Well,
So that does make more sense if you are thinking of developers as being cash lean, right? Not immediately liquid.
Right.
How can I put this to you? I remember working on a project in Massachusetts, and it was going to be something like 25 houses on this subdivision, and the developer of the property, everything, he had, like Joe just said, a third party I mean, it was considerable amount of the bond. And again, you know, as $1,000 per whatever, well, halfway through, he bellied up on him, you know. So there was a little bit of what do you call it, jostling in the courts between the contract, you know, the developer, the contractor, the people of this, of, you know, the town and everything, and the contractor who I worked for, I was doing the houses and the house lots. And, you know, that's what happens. That's why sometimes it's better off to put a, you know, a higher bond, even if they get it, but they'll get it back in the end. But we, the town or whatever, will have there's a backup, like Alvin says. You got to think of inflation, you got to think of all this other stuff. So, you know, 30,000, then you ask for 60,000. So, but in the end, if everything gets completed, all the houses got built, all said and done, you know, it goes back. Nobody loses. If I
Yeah,
kind of said that correctly.
yeah,
So-
I understand. I think I understand what you're saying, John. So yeah, my thing is, I think we've got to keep the B. If we agree that fees in lieu of open space is a valuable resource or tool for us, then I think we've got to keep the ability to pay fractionally, under the assumption that not every subdivider is going to be able to do the full amount.
Correct.
And actually, a thought that just occurred to me, and again, I'm going back to conversations that came out of the affordable housing plan. One of the things that we've been talking about there is the idea of small scale development as a wealth builder for the people who live in the community.
Yeah.
So, you know, somebody who wants to improve their community by providing housing for people to move there, to live there, to downsize there, to upsize there, or whatever, who is doing it as an individual, a small business, not a corporate developer. Because what everybody hates are the corporate developers, right? The people who they perceive come in and like smash the land up and, you know, come in with a fleet of lawyers and they gerrymander everything in their own favor and against the town. But for the kind of wealth building that comes out of an independent contractor, somebody like a Jason LaValle,
Yeah, there you go.
right? And Jason does a great job, you know, and he's got sort of experience doing it. I have no idea if he keeps himself cash lean, right? If he would be the kind of person who would pay the fee all up front or opt to pay out fractionally. But if he was in this conversation and said, oh, no, we always pay fractionally because that enables us to, you know,
Well,
have our reserves for expenses as they come up, I would say, okay, you know,
well,
I
there you go.
understand that.
You just kind of like almost answered it. Talk to Jason, because Jason will not put himself in harm's way, you know, put himself in debt. When he takes a project, he wants to do a project, from talking to him and some people that know him and that I know, that Jason always puts good thought in what he wants to do.
Yeah,
He's not gonna,
that's
you know, it's just, you know, I mean, he's gonna be one of the best, you know, a good developer as far as I'm concerned, what he's doing, you know, he's not, you know, trying to do it all at once, or he's doing it in sections. And then it's gonna, you know, he's gonna come out of this in a good way, and the town's not gonna lose, and the town's gonna get a good road, he's gonna get everything, you know, that's pretty much what he said he's gonna do and everything, but you know, it takes money, you know, I mean, he's not like you just said, you know, some of these contractors or developers, you know, they got the big bucks behind them and the lawyers and stuff. You know, he's, I don't think he's like that, but.
right,
you know,
right. So it seems to me, and you're right, John, the talking through it did kind of answer my own question.
Correct.
If one of the purposes of making the regulations easier to navigate is to make those processes easier for the people who live within a community to be the ones to develop within the community,
Correct.
right? To have those resources, then yes, preserving that ability to make a cash lean but credit rich business function I think that's the purpose there. We just had to sort of talk it through, but also, yes, you're right. I'll talk to Jason and get his perspective there, but I suspect that he will echo what we just came up with.
Yeah, well, see, his project down here in Quinnebog is now not the only project he's got going on. You know, he has maybe one other somewhere in Mass somewhere that he's supposed to be, he was gonna get going on or whatever, but he's probably got somebody that's gonna go in it with him, so he's got the cash flow.
Right. Okay, I think we've at least resolved that for this evening, and I'll go back in and do whatever additional questioning I need to do. So let's just get through this with open space waivers and we'll call it a night, because then we're into energy conservation, and we should probably start that with fresh eyes as a new thought process. So open space waiver, the commission shall require open space in all subdivisions of 4 lots or more, or
No,
shall,
three lots, please.
oh yeah, we've already actually got that note here. Yep, 3. Or shall require a fee in lieu of open space for all subdivisions. No waivers of this requirement shall be granted except in the following instances as specifically required by Chapter 126,
Section
Section 8-25 of the Connecticut General Statutes. 1, where the transfer of all
I'm
land.
sorry, I'm sorry, Tara, I'm sorry. So back to that first sentence.
Yes, sir.
So in the second clause where it says, or shall require a fee in lieu of open space for all subdivisions, to me, because it reads differently than all subdivisions of 3 lots or more.
Oh, yeah, yes, I see where you're going. So how it should, let me see if I get this right. The commission shall require open space or shall require a fee in lieu of open space for all subdivisions of 3
Yeah,
lots or more.
exactly.
Yes,
Yeah,
okay.
thank you.
Order of wording. Good catch, Joe. And no waivers of this requirement shall be granted except in the following instances as specifically required by Chapter 126, Section 8-25 of the Connecticut General Statutes. Where the transfer of all land in a subdivision of less than 5 lots, this is just all over the place.
That's correct. That's an 825.
That is an 825. Okay, so that's carried over. Where the transfer of all land in a subdivision of less than 5 lots is to a parent, child, brother, sister, grandparent, grandchild, aunt, uncle, or first cousin of the property owner for no consideration, but that seems to me that that should be compensation. Such intended transfer shall be evidenced by covenants, restrictions, contracts, or other legally binding documents as the commission may approve, which documents shall be filed in the land records along with the subdivision plan. If the commission determines, subsequent to the approval of such subdivision, that such transfers were intended to be temporary, and for the sole purpose of evading the requirements of this section, the commission may, following a public hearing with notice by certified mail to the violator, void, in whole or in part, any such subdivision approval and may cause notice thereof to be filed in the land records. I also feel like this should be separated into 2 thoughts. And where the subdivision is to contain affordable housing as defined.
For what it's worth, I do think consideration is a contract term, Kira.
Okay, well, I'll double check, because if that's what the language is in the statute, that's what we'll keep. It just seems bizarre.
I believe it is.
Okay. I'm willing to believe that legal language is awkward. Where this subdivision is to contain affordable housing as defined in section 8-39A of the Connecticut General Statutes. I don't know which chapter that, well, chapter 126 probably.
It's the same,
Yeah, chapter
126.
Section of the Connecticut General Statutes, equal to 20% or more of the total housing to be constructed in such subdivision. Such restrictions for affordable housing shall be evidenced by such documents as the commission may require, and such restrictions shall run with the lots affected thereby in perpetuity. If subsequent to approval of the subdivision, the lots designated for affordable housing shall not be sold for that purpose, the commission may, following a public hearing with notice by certified mail to the violator, void in whole or in part any such subdivision approval, and may cause notice thereof to be filed in the land records. And my feeling is that that stuff is all taken directly from statutes.
And it is.
Yeah, so those,
You
aside
got the
from-
guru right there.
yeah. All right, so that's pretty much as is. So we'll pick up the next session with Section 9 Energy Conservation. Off the top of my head, I think I have the 22nd of September set aside from that. So that would be 2 weeks from tonight. So I will send out a Zoom link for that when I get back to the office. And after I've done the revision of this into the version 1 draft. Before we close it, anybody have anything they want to go back over?
I just thank Alvin and John for being here tonight. Mary for joining us as well.
I hope it wasn't too boring, Mary.
Gloria for her continued good work. And with that, I will entertain, unless Tira has anything else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make that motion for you, Chair.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn the meeting at 8:33 p.m. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
See you guys.
Night.
Good night.
Night.
Night.